Hello all sentient beings and welcome to Transmissions Alt Mode, where we talk all news, comics, and media related to the... On this free comic book day episode of Transmissions Alt Mode, we meet up with John Barber and Alex Milne as we talk about their latest project, Transformers Unicron. We review Free Comic Book Day's Transformers Unicron Issue 0, and we share our thoughts on what might be next for IDW and the Transformers. Today is May 5th, 2018, and this is a special Free Comic Book Day episode of Transmissions Alt Mode.
Welcome to Transmissions Alt Mode, the podcast that has summoned you here for a purpose. I'm your host Charles, aka Big C, and I'm joined by the excellent Transmissions team. Yusuf, better known as Yoshi.
Yo!
Jeremy, aka Yakko.
Hey, how you doing?
And Daryl, the Cybertronian Beast.
Hello. Let's talk Transformers.
All right, so this is a very special podcast. This is our special Unicron Free Comic Book Day podcast. If this is your first time listening to us, we want to give you a tiny intro to who we are, and then we'll get right into the good stuff, because we have gotten a chance to sit down with some very interesting people and who work on Transformers comics. But we're a podcast, a Transformers focused podcast. We've been going for about almost 5 years now. We've talked a lot about toys and Transformers comics and other media as well. We do 2 shows every week that talks about what's going on in the world of Transformers. So I'm Charles, Big C, as I said in the intro. Been a fan since the 80s. I'm an old man now, but still love Transformers. Still a kid at heart. Who do I have with me?
Hey, I'm Daryl, Cybertronian Beast. I'm basically the show's toy guy, reluctantly the toy guy, but I do collect the most stuff. And I used to do some video reviews on YouTube, but, with the podcast and life, things got a little bit hectic. So I stopped doing the YouTube reviews, but the podcast has been a lot more fun. So I really enjoy doing the podcast with these fellas here.
All right. I'm Jeremy. I enjoy walks on the beach. Oh, sorry. Different podcast. I am just kind of an all-around Transformer fan since the 80s. And I like the toys, but obviously not as much as Daryl. I'm more into the TV shows, the comics, sometimes the movies, maybe. Not the recent ones, but yeah, it's just the podcast has been a blast, and not so good for my wallet, but good for enjoyment and getting to meet these guys. It's been great.
And I'm Yoshi. I am the G1 purist on the show. And over the course of the, 5 years now that we've been doing this, these guys have done a great job with their encyclopedic knowledge of Transformers, of educating me on everything that's happened since the 80s, and they continue to do so. I like to think of myself as the newbie. Anybody that's just getting into Transformers, I'm going to be the one that asks the questions that makes them look stupid, because I'm just so ingrained in G1 that I feel like every episode I'm learning something new about the current state of Transformers. So yeah, thanks for listening, and that's it, Charles.
All right. So if you do like what you hear when you finish listening to this episode, we've got lots more shows to listen to. So if you go to our website, www.transmissionspodcast.com/subscribe. That's where you can subscribe to the podcast. We're on all the major services, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, lots of places. And you can just download the audio file straight from the website. So there's lots of ways to listen if you're interested. So you didn't come here just to hear us ramble. You came here to listen to the creative team behind the Unicron Free Comic Book Day comic. So Unicron number 0 is coming out today, Free Comic Book Day. And we got to talk with the writer, John Barber, and the artist, Alex Milne, on that comic. And we had a really good chat with them. It was really fun. So you'll get to hear everything they talked about. Then we'll do a review of Unicron number 0, and we'll give you all our thoughts on that comic. And then we're going to wrap up with our speculation for what's going to be the future of Transformers comics in IDW, because this Unicron series represents the end of the entire IDW Transformers continuity, and but IDW is still going to make Transformers comics, so there's going to be something afterwards, right? So we'll have to figure out what that is. One other thing just want to mention is that as you're reading, if you have Unicron number 0 in your hands, try and read the book first before you listen to the later in the show. We'll mention when there's spoilers coming up. But one thing I do want to say is depending on when the regular Optimus Prime series is out, you might not want to read the writer's guide at the very back of the Unicron comic. There are some pretty big spoilers there for the main Optimus Prime series that IDW currently publishes. So depending on whether the right issues have come out yet, you might not want to spoil yourself about the last paragraph of that writer's guide has a major revelation. So,
and it's really hard to give someone a warning without giving the actual spoiler. Like if X hasn't happened, don't read it. But how do you know if it's happened or not when you don't know exactly what it's to look out for?
Yep. All right. So let's move on and talk to John Barber and Alex Milne. We're privileged to welcome the creative team behind the final IDW G1 Transformers story, Unicron. Alex Milne is a veteran Transformers comics artist best known for his artwork on the critically acclaimed Transformers More Than Meets the Eye series, and more recently, the Rom vs. Transformers miniseries. Alex's art has been a fan favorite for years and was a huge factor in More Than Meets the Eye's success. John Barber has been a regular writer on Transformers comics since the Transformers Robots in Disguise series, and continuing with the follow-on and currently running series Optimus Prime. He also co-wrote Rom vs. Transformers, which was the first time John and Alex had worked together on a comic. John also served as the editor for all the Transformers books from 2012 to 2016, and is the reason the Transformers books now feel like they are in a coherent, ongoing universe. Thank you both for joining us today to talk about the beginning of the end.
Hey, thanks for having us. That wasn't our first comic, though. That wasn't the first time we worked together.
Oh.
Yeah.
Our first comic was a pack-in comic for some movie toys.
That's right. I can't remember which one, because you did like 2, right?
I did 3. I did Jazz, Starscream, and RC.
I forgot you did Jazz. That's right. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I knew it was Starscream. Yeah. I can't remember what order they got done in.
Well. You learn something new every day, but I hadn't bought any of the movie toys, so I guess that's why I missed that one.
It's always good to start off with Charles being correct.
Yeah, that's. I enjoy those times.
All right. Well, let's get into the interview, because we're here to talk about Unicron, and he's a big guy, so it's a big topic. So, yeah. So I want to start off, Alex. How did you approach redesigning the iconic planet-sized robot?
Well, I didn't redesign all of him. The planet mode had already been shown off in some promo art, and IDW wanted me to keep it close or similar to that. So that was what I had to go off of, and I just came up with a robot mode based off of that planet mode. He's covered in tons of different parts, like different chunks of planet that he's eaten and digested. Some of it is turned to fuel, some of it creates his outer shell, so I had to incorporate that into the robot design.
Okay.
Basically, I wanted to keep a lot of aspects similar to the G1 version of Unicron, because I like that one so much, but I also like the Transformers Prime Unicron, and I wanted to figure out a way of making the large planet pincers not the shoulders, so I have them sticking. They're like big pieces of armor that come up across the front of his chest, and the mouth is still like the maw is still in the center of the chest, and I figured that he could use that to consume planets even in robot mode. So that's why he looks like that.
Oh, that's that's doubly menacing. So I mean, I also saw the image that that IDW's released where you show Unicron in robot mode, and he's so huge that he can hold the Earth in the palm of his hand. So he's getting much bigger than I remember him in Transformers the movie.
That's just because you remember him wrong.
As we proved at the beginning of the show, I get things wrong sometimes. So.
What, he's had, John, like 20 years to eat his Wheaties and grow up?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's eaten a few planets in between. The more planets he eats, the bigger he gets. So when we, by the time we see him, he's not just the size of Cybertron. He's, 7 times the size of Cybertron or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, he's big.
And John, so now that we're coming to the end game here, was when they started the Hasbro universe and expanded the Transformers universe. I guess this was 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. Was Unicron always planned to be the end game at that time? At that point?
No, I mean, Unicron's something we talked about forever. We came James and I came really close to wanting to bring in Unicron at the end of Dark Cybertron. But we just we didn't have a story to go along with it. We actually wrote a page that teased that Unicron existed. But we didn't neither of us were ready to get to that story or figure out where that was going to go. It would just be kind of a dangling plot thread for a long time. So we didn't do that. So it's always been something in our minds. It's come up a couple times. When we wanted to do it or what we wanted to do with it. But no, it wasn't. I mean, that wasn't the original plan. But that is sort of from my point of view, way back in. I mean, this is probably in the late 30s of Transformers or Robots in Disguise. I don't remember. I think it was Transformers by then, but of that comic. When I kind of came up with the idea of All Hail Optimus, it was kind of like, okay, well, if that happens, then the next story is going to be the Earth response to it, and that basically became Revolution when we decided to go with the Hasbro universe. But following up from that, there's kind of, okay, here's what the next story is, and then if that happens, and this happens, and this happens, and I kind of realized, well, that's the end of what I want to do. That's the end of my story. So I remember I called James. I think I talked to Carlos first, Carlos Guzman, the editor
mm-hmm.
on the comic at the time. I think I talked to him first, then I called James, and I called Marguerite, and eventually I called Michael Kelly at Hasbro and kind of told him all the same thing. When I told James, he was like, "Oh, I've kind of got to I've gotten in too." I don't think we really knew if they were going to sync up or anything, because I was like, "I'm not trying to get you to quit." I'm just like, I think this is. You want to get to the end of the story. This is where we want to go, and then, or this is when I want to go. I mean, go as in leave. Some time ago, many months ago now, I don't remember exactly when, the idea kind of came together with IDW to do Unicron, and kind of end everything all at once. And those did kind of all fit together. So that's kind of where it came from.
Okay. So, and I mentioned in the intro, you guys had more recently worked together on ROM versus Transformers, and it feels like this Unicron collaboration is a natural follow-on, a spiritual successor to that miniseries. Would it be fair to say that?
I think so. Yeah, I don't know. Alex, I don't know. What do you think?
So far, I'm having as much fun with it as I did with ROM versus Transformers. So
that's cool. Yeah.
There's some interesting stuff that happens. We got ROMs in it, so
it's true.
Are y'all working on it the same way? Because I know, Alex, you had a lot more input into the panel layout and stuff with ROM versus Transformers.
Not this time. John's writing full script. There's just so many characters and so much dialogue that needs to be shown to me that it's better to write it in full script, I think. Just keeps me from, missing out on something that could be important.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I always feel, I feel like this with anybody, but I think kind of especially Alex, just kind of seeing the way what you did with the ROM Transformers. I'm always open. I mean, it's not like I would ever get mad if you did something that I wrote 4 panels and you did the 11 that you were doing in ROM Transformers, or the other way around. You know what I mean? Like I trust your storytelling, instincts and stuff. So I'm always, hopefully without saying, but I'm always happy if you want to break it up differently. I think part of it also, like Hasbro, I think, well, I don't know. When we launched into the Free Comic Book Day, there was kind of an early draft of that script it wasn't really the same story that they came in by the time Alex is on, but we had to start that so early. I think the first draft of it, I might not have known who was going to draw it even, or we might have gotten started on it, and then by the time I finished it, we knew. But the second draft, I definitely knew it was you, and that was significantly different. I mean, I don't know. Did you even see the first draft, Alex?
When I got the script, I was going away to a convention, so I printed it out, and it printed both scripts together. So like everything that was redacted had a line through it, but I got to see what the original script was and what the new script was, and I was just like, oh, I could have drawn them. And I was just like,
oh yeah. That was kind of, maybe I didn't know you were going to do it, because they would make sense to have those characters in there. So long ago now, it seems. No, there's a bunch of stuff changed. I think for the better. I think it's definitely a better script. I think it turned out really nice.
That sounds like something some fans might like to buy at a convention or something.
There you go. I think some of that stuff was kind of makes its way into some other issues, though. So it's not quite as exciting. Some stuff just kind of got moved around. It was sort of when characters made their introductions, got changed around and who we were following. Because originally we weren't. I guess this isn't like a big secret. I think originally we were following some other characters who will show up later on, rather than Optimus, RC, Bumblebee, and in that group. Mm-hmm. And it really didn't make a lot of sense to start off that way, and it made much more sense to have those characters kind of being in the forefront. So we'll see some of that stuff actually happening, I think, in the Optimus Prime series, and then some of it'll filter back to Unicron as it goes on, just the characters coming in a little bit later in the series.
Mm-hmm. All right, and just a couple more questions before we get into some spoiler territory. I just wanted to ask, Unicron, of course, has a well-known history going back to Transformers the movie. So I was curious, do you have a good reason for him to transform, and is he going to get some minions to help him out?
Alex, you want to field that one?
Yes, and yes.
Fair enough. So now, we were lucky enough to convince IDW to let us read the issue a little bit early. So this is coming out on Free Comic Book Day. So everyone listening, you should already have the comic. If you haven't read it yet, I would suggest you go and read it now, because we are going to spoil stuff from the first issue or the 0th issue of Unicron. So I wanted to just talk about. So we already talked about Unicron getting a redesign, but we also have another character here, Bumblebee, who we know he's in a kind of a limbo state. He's on track for coming back into the series, but here in Unicron number 0, he's already returned, so he's back to form. He's back in the universe with all his friends, and he's got a prominent role here. And so I wanted to ask, is he a big part of this final series? Because Bumblebee has been kind of off the table for a long time, except for being Starscream's Jiminy Cricket for a little while. But now we've got Bumblebee back. So is he going to be a big part of this last series?
Maybe everybody's hallucinating now. Maybe they all just think they're seeing Bumblebee. Well, if everybody's hallucinated, is there any difference between that and being alive? Maybe that's all life is a collective decision that you exist. He's going to play a big role. I mean, that's definitely a case where, full on, like the twist we alluded to earlier, like that will have played out in Optimus Prime before you get that Free Comic Book Day thing. Like that's barring something really horrible happening, because we were very careful about that. But other than sending you the PDF, sorry.
Well, it's my own fault. I asked for this, so
Yeah. No, I should have asked them to leave that out or something. But no, but the Bumblebee thing, the Free Comic Book Day issue is ahead of the story on that. I think by the time Free Comic Book Day hits, well, we'll be a little closer to that. But Bumblebee is going to play a big role. By the time Unicron 1 comes out, like everything will be synced back up, and we'll see where it is. This is sort of, if you're reading all the Transformers books and you're picking up Unicron 0, it's sort of a window into a couple months in the future, both in terms of our months and the Transformers months. Yeah. So yeah, Bumblebee plays a big role. That's the answer to your question. Yes.
It made me smile to hear or to see Bumblebee say "Hokey Smokes."
Ah, yeah. Hey, see, Alex.
I guess I just didn't get it.
You need to watch more Bullwinkle.
Exactly.
I can't stand that cartoon.
Really?
I don't mind it, but it's just I never really caught on up here.
Well, I appreciated Bumblebee's line that he borrowed from Spike in the movie, when, of course, without the expletive, but.
Yeah, it is sort of funny where there's the one point where he couldn't say something they said in ostensibly a kids movie from 1985.
Alex, it definitely looks like you put a lot of work into capturing the scale of Unicron coming in and attacking Elonia, Rom's homeworld, and it looks like this comic took like more effort than usual. I mean, we know you were a stickler and have a lot of attention to detail. So how much pain did you go through to give us these beautiful images?
It's just a Tuesday, Charles.
Yeah. I've been going through extensive psychotherapy. I had 5 nervous breakdowns. I'm not even sure if I'm actually here anymore. No, it was a challenge, but I was up to it. Like you said, getting the scale right was important to me. The hardest thing is trying to show off parts like you need to have, like the Soul Star Knights flying towards Unicron, but they're so tiny. They're only people and like humanoid like height, and Unicron's a planet, a bigger planet than Rom's homeworld. So how do you do that? And it's all a matter of perspective. You put them in, they'll still look small, but they're in the extreme foreground compared to Unicron, which is in the extreme background. But since he's so big, even the extreme background, he's going to fill up the page, but the characters will look smaller. But if you got them up to, there's a shot where you see Rom and Livia flying over the surface of Unicron, and you get more sense of how big he actually is, because there's giant chunks of digested planet on him that they're flying over.
Yeah, it gave me the feeling of like the trench run on the Death Star. It's in terms of the scale of the characters to the surface of the planet.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like an absolute jerk writing in a script something like, I mean, that'd be like writing, Superman flies over planet Earth, like deal with that. What does that mean? Like, how do you like that scale is horrific, but you did an amazing job on it, Alex.
I wouldn't have minded Superman flying over planet Earth, because Superman's easy to, well, it's not easy to draw. Getting him to look right is a pain in the butt. He's got like such a defined chin and hairstyle, but
he doesn't have
robots flying. He's not like boxes and gears, and it's not like Optimus Prime and everything. So no, it's fun. It's fun. I like more what we uncovered in the attack later on. There's a interesting page coming up.
Oh yeah, with the are you referring to the Titan?
Yeah,
buried underground.
That was the most fun I had, was that page.
Cool. Drawing that face embedded in the rock there.
Yeah, I can't believe you made sense of the nonsense I wrote on that page, and not only did that, but made it into like such a great page that really shows the scale. You know, because that is another one. Like the scale on that is so bizarre and weird, and you've got up a giant planet attacking another planet. Buried underground is a city that's a person, and coming toward the city are 20-foot tall people with a 6-foot tall person, or what are they, 30 feet tall? I mean, that's crazy. And you looks so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of them picks up a rock.
Yeah, that's right. There's a rock in that page. Sorry, Alex.
No, that's not a big deal to me.
You guys have worked together for a while now, so you've probably got a good rhythm between each other. But how did you originally figure out, like, John, how much detail to put in the description of a page so as to make sure Alex had enough information to go off, or you weren't giving him too much to drive him insane? Like, at some point there, you have to release creative control and let him have fun, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, I've known Alex for many years. I mean, like we've been like I was editing More Than Meets the Eye for a very long time. So I talk to Alex, every once in a while. I talk to him on email all the time, but on the phone every once in a while. So I kind of had a feeling for where he would really maybe want to stretch out, but the other, I mean, I'd seen Alex coming in with ideas, and I remember talking to Chris Gage, who co-wrote Transformers ROM, or ROM Transformers, whatever. I don't know the names of any of these comics, but he, I remember, like telling him we should really give Alex some room, and like early on, there's like a page where you get to a space station. I think in the script I had said something like, there's like maybe 50 people on board, and then Alex sent this email back, and he's like, that doesn't make any sense. A station that size would have to have at least 150 people, because you'd be on 8-hour shifts, so you'd have to have somebody on duty at all times. And it's like, oh yeah, okay. I mean, you're absolutely right. And Alex is thinking this stuff through so well. And the planet that ROM Transformers took place on was, like, Alex sent this email with these ideas for the ecology of it. And it was like, oh, that's fantastic. So the more room we could give him, I mean, the better. It's definitely a lot of the ROM Transformers especially was really spare, where it was just kind of like, here's a I mean, I was trying to be spare. You're just kind of like, here's you're on a mining planet somewhere, and go for it, make it really cool. And some artists would not like that. You know what I mean? There's some people that would just like, why aren't you doing your job? I was hoping and kind of banking on Alex liking that, because I think, I mean, well, he's here, so he can speak to that. But like, I think he likes designing that stuff. And just the more, like, I very rarely ever call shots, of like, what camera angle or what positioning of the camera there is, because I definitely think that's, part of the, part of the collaboration and part of the thing that the artist, does. Because I mean, you can make up all these shots in your head on the page, but, or excuse me, on the script page, but whether or not it actually works on a drawn page, that's a different story. You know what I mean? And I don't like locking people into, into some sort of thing. Sometimes I'll call a shot just if I think sound like I'm describing something impossible, but but I can think of a way to do it. But I don't really, mind if that's the way it gets done. So yeah, I don't know. The more space I can give Alex, the better, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah. Well, with ROM versus Transformers, that was like, I was a kid in a candy store. that was like Christmas to me. I'd been working with James Roberts for so long, and he's very rigid in how he outlines his scripts and how he wants things to do. And we've had a few arguments about how doors work. It's the real reason why John left as an editor. I'm just letting everybody know now. He's got sick of our emails about how doors work on spaceships.
There were more arguments about how doors work in that comic than the 0 times that's happened anywhere else in my comic book career.
What can I say? It was a special book. So this, like when I got with ROM and Transformers, that just gave me the chance to be like, hey, let's do a ton of crazy stuff, and like John and Christos were up for it. So that was amazing. And like with Unicron right now, like John, you give me a little bit more detailed script, you give me the dialogue, so now I know where I should be placing people and to give them where I should give panels a little bit more room. So it's all real fun, and heck, you give me space battles. How could I not love that?
So is it safe to say that really John focuses on the dialogue, and Alex, you just focus on making sure everything looks perfect? You've got, it almost sounds like, Alex, you've got creative control of the look, and John is putting his attention where it should be, which is just on the back and forth between the characters.
I guess you could say that. I also, like, I'll read over the script very carefully, and I'll be thinking about how John's written it, how the dialogue's coming out, and I have to add that kind of personality to it. If I think a character is giving this line some sass, I have to show that off in the art.
Gotcha.
So
very cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, you're so good at acting with the characters too. I mean, that's kind of another thing I really like. I mean, I'm really lucky to get to work, on Transformers with you and Andrew and Kay on Optimus Prime, and then Sarah PD on Optimus Prime on some of the issues, and like all of you are really good at understanding the characters and understanding how they emote. So I don't need to, like I feel like if I was, I don't know, you're just really good at making that come through. So that's really cool. You're good. You're all good.
I try. But when you got like fun characters to play with, it's pretty easy. Like with Wheeljack in the Free Comic Book Day issue.
Poor Wheeljack.
Yeah, speaking of Wheeljack, so you get to kill Wheeljack a second time.
I know, I've killed him twice. Yeah.
So was this just a nod for us RID readers who remember the first time?
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess no, but it was. I mean, it was I don't know. We're coming in the end, and stakes are high, and he's one of my favorite characters. I mean, the first time, that's definitely a situation, kind of like, Bumblebee, where he kind of knew where he was going, or a certain other character that showed up in Optimus Prime recently. I knew the fake out in the death, and now there's not a lot of time for fake outs, so it certainly isn't one.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wanted somebody. I mean, it was, I don't like deaths for the sake of deaths, but it was just kind of like, well, I mean, that it gives them a good, I think a really heroic moment, but like a kind of an understated heroic moment in a way, I don't know. It's still tragic. It's still sad. I think it was sad for me anyway. I don't know. Sort of like with Sideswipe, in the issue. Like I don't. I feel like sometimes, people are like, "Oh, you hate those characters." Like, no, I mean, those are the ones I love. That's why it hurts,
Mm-hmm.
Well, Wheeljack, you gave him the Spock death.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, John, you're known as, and I mentioned it in the intro, like you're kind of the continuity fixer. I mean, you've since you were editing the book for about 4 years, and writing on Robots in Disguise, you've tied in a bunch of kind of, I would say, a lot of plot points that were used by kind of dropped by other authors for various reasons, but you managed to kind of tie them all together. And can we expect more connections to the early days of the IDW Transformers comics in these last 6 issues?
Yeah, I mean, there'll be a little bit. I mean, a lot of that's just the sort of stuff that I'd read, and it would kind of, inspire me or make me think there's maybe an interesting story that you could tell. Like I don't know if they'll. I mean, there's stuff that very directly calls back, to at least to RID number one. Hopefully you don't need to know that if you're just coming in on Unicron. You can still kind of enjoy this as a big, a big giant story, the way you could kind of come in with Crisis on Infinite Earths or something in the mid 80s and still enjoy that as a story, even if you didn't, read the DC universe before then. But I mean, there's some stuff's definitely going to come up. I kind of think more of it's probably going to be from the stuff that it's the stuff that had already played a big role in RID, Transformers, and Optimus Prime. Just because that's the stuff that's really still in the air. But like I was saying, with regards to RC, some of it, you do kind of have to think back and think, well, this is going to be like one of the cool things about this is that you're going to be able to actually get all of these stories. You could sit them on your bookshelf. They'll probably all be in those cool oversized hardcovers, and you could sit down and read the first one and go all the way to the last one and get a whole story. So there's maybe some things I'm trying to think of that would make that a more, coherent reading experience, or more, you wouldn't be left with something hopefully making you super angry, just because of it's being left out or something or forgotten about. But, the reality of the situation is there's only so many pages, and, it's definitely the stuff that's been at the foreground of the storytelling for the last few years. It's going to be the stuff that gets the most screen time, the most page time.
Yeah. And I mean, and speaking of I guess RID plot points, I mean, particular Dark Cybertron. I mean, did you always have I mean, I know it's an interesting coincidence. There's 13 ores, 13 colony worlds, 13 primes. Did you always have in the back of your head that you were gonna have all those things intersect and kind of feed off of each other?
Yeah, as they kind of added together. I mean, it wasn't like all at once, I mean, or 13, obviously, is the thing that Simon came up with, and I saw that and I was like, well, 13, there's 13 primes. That's interesting, and maybe there's 13. Maybe it isn't just a kind of random number, but maybe there's 13 ores that are important. So I don't mean to make this sound like we sat down in 2007 and figured out exactly how page 17 of Unicron number 5 would happen in 2018. But like it kind of as the pieces kept adding to it, we're like, oh, okay, if we're going to do these, there's 13 colonies too. Well, that all seems to fit together, and there's very probably there's every chance that something would happen somewhere and make that not work. Like it's that might have been going on in my head, but that wasn't necessarily the way reality was going to come together. But it kind of did. So yeah, the pieces kind of all added up to each other. It's somewhere in between a grand plan and just kind of improvising the whole way, but it all fitting together anyway. That's kind of one of the tricks, I guess. I mean, like this is something that I think about a lot, and I don't mean to just ramble, but like when Lost came out and Battlestar Galactica was going on at the same time, and both of them were saying, okay, we've got a plan and we know where we're going, and both of them by the time they got to it, like clearly didn't. But you had all these other shows that would come out and they'd be like, okay, we really do have a plan, and they've got like a 6-season plan that's super tight and gets you exactly where you're going to go in season 6, except they get canceled 4 episodes in, or whatever. And it's that balance between the two where Lost and Battlestar are shows I like admire tremendously, and part of that is they were always compelling week to week, with some exceptions. You know what I mean? Like there's the season of Lost that everybody's like, oh no, that season didn't work. That was when they clearly didn't know where they were going. But like that idea of being able to keep the storytelling going week to week is really admirable. And then I think you had but there's like I don't know, like a warning in there too of like Lost making Lost encouraging people to ask questions that the show itself was probably never interested in at all. You know, like you know, what what were those numbers? What did they mean? You know, well, the fact is they were references to the Illuminatus trilogy and the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And I mean, you can go through the numbers and figure out what they're referring to, but it's got nothing to do with the plot of Lost. It's just the numbers that, you know, that geeks like us like. You know, so, but there's no way to not have that be like right on your head when you're watching the show. Like, when are we going to get the answers to what all this stuff means? So I don't, you know, so like, and same thing with Battlestar. You know, you kind of got to the end. What was Starbuck all about? Well, it was mystery. You know, like, oh, come on. You know, I invested too much time in worrying about that to not have an answer, right? But you know, at the same time, that got to the end of the series where, you know, V or the 4400 or whatever never did. So I don't know. Yeah, that's the thing I worry about a lot. It's the thing I think about a lot is how these. How much of it is a master plan versus how much of it is keeping things interesting, issue to issue, story to story. And God, really hoping not to screw up the ending because working really hard on it. And there's a lot of things we planned for a really long time. You know, there's scenes that I've had in my head since, I don't know, years now, that hopefully will play out okay. I don't know. There's the honest answer. I don't know. That's the that's the real John's head.
We've seen, so Star Drive was a really breakout character from Rom versus Transformers. We have seen her come back into the series in Optimus Prime. So in particular, I would hope that Alex maybe gets a chance to draw Star Drive one last time in this series. Any chance of that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I don't think that's much of a spoiler. Yeah, of course. And that was. I mean, if you go back to the beginning of the interview, she was one of the characters that was in the first draft of the script, and it was like obviously made a lot of sense because she's Transformer. She's Cybertronian and Delonian. It just sort of narratively didn't make sense to get her there yet. So we'll. I think the next time we see her will be in Optimus Prime, but she will have. You're not the only person on this call who's asked that a lot and is pretty excited about it. And I definitely, yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yes. I think Alex would, you'd kill me, right? If she didn't.
I think you've gotten sick of my emails about when Star Drive's coming back. I want to draw Star Drive.
Yeah. Oh, because that character was so much, that was all, that was all Alex. That was such a great, the designs, the name, and she's a character I really love, and as we've sort of seen some stuff's happened in the last couple hundred years with her. She's fallen in with a rough crowd, huh? But we'll see her.
Will her kind of subplot from the end of Rom versus Transformers be resolved? Is there time to resolve it?
It'll play a role. I was talking to somebody this weekend, and you were talking about like something resolving, and I was like, I guess the real question is, does anything ever resolve? Like, are human beings capable of resolving anything? And then I was like, whoa, that might be too big of a question to ask you, because that might be the essential question about human existence. So does it resolve? I don't know. Does anything? Like, do we resolve ourselves? Do people change? I don't know.
I thought we were just talking about Transformers, not discussing like existential philosophy.
It's one and the same.
Don't Battlestar this ending.
Well, the whole of my run on all the Transformers books has been about this idea of, can you break the cycle? Is Cybertron, you're a hero until you live too long and then you become the villain, like that's been there, that's what happened with, Nova, and that's seems to be what happened with the 13 primes before then. And is that happening with Optimus? And did that happen with, you know, I don't know, is that breakable? So I don't know. It's tough for. I mean, I've spent a lot of years and a lot of time on these guys, and it's hard for it not to be big existential questions for me at this point. So yes, it'll play a role, and I don't know is the answer to the other question.
Well, bringing things a little bit down to earth, Action Man, is he going to play a role in the final series, or you know, will we get a one last ride with Action Man?
I think the idea is there's going to be some extra short stories in Unicron, and I think we'll at least get to check in with him, either in the main story and or in a short backup story.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, pretty much.
Make it the main story, then I get to draw it.
Yeah.
Have him swoop in and save the day.
That's it. Oh man, did they send you the script for issue 6? Oh no. Yeah, you did okay, Optimus. I got this one. And he just goes after a.
Do the Bob Newhart ending, and he wakes up, and the entire Transformer has reverse thing was all in his dreams.
So Chris Ryall has left IDW, but I was curious, did you tell Chris that you destroyed the Soul Star Order?
That's why he left.
He's definitely a big Rom fan there, so I'm sure he's happy that Rom's featured in Unicron, but maybe not so happy that his planet has been destroyed.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, like, Chris is still there for this issue. I mean, he was like, in all seriousness, he was actually, he and David Hedgecock also played a big role in kind of working through what the Unicron story was going to be. So yeah, I got Chris's notes on the first issue. Come on, yeah, but no, he was sad to see Alonia go. I think Alonia got more screen time in Transformers ROM Transformers than it ever did in ROM, but nevertheless.
Well, they did have that annual that was all set on Alonia.
That I know, that's true. You're right. You're right. Yeah.
So I know, John, you collaborated with Tom Scioli on that Transformers versus G.I. Joe #0 Free Comic Book Day. I was curious if Alex, this was the first Free Comic Book Day comic that you've gotten to do.
It is.
Cool.
Oh, cool.
So this is I think this is probably a Transformers comic that is going to get much wider circulation than normal, since everyone's going to be picking it up, and I think that's pretty cool.
Hopefully everybody's going to be picking it up. Hopefully it'll be the one that is one of the first books that disappears off the free rack.
So Alex, what was it like working with Sebastian Chang and his colors on the book? I mean, I know you and Josh Perez have been longtime collaborators, so I was just curious what how it was with a different colorist on this one.
Oh, it's been great. There's definitely a learning curve for both of us. I have to go over his work a little bit more because he's not used to working with my lines, so he doesn't. I pack in the detail, so there'll be times where I'll be like, that should be that, like just little background elements. Just like, can we change that? But he's been great. I feel bad anytime I would have to give him an edit. So I'm just like, I feel like I'm giving too much here. But he's been a good sport. And he was one of the people that I wanted to work with ever since I saw his work on Revolutions. So I wanted to get the opportunity to work with him. So thankfully, the bosses were like, okay, sure, we'll we'll pair you two up.
Yeah, and the results are fantastic. The art really pops. The colors really pop too. So it's really cool. All right, I think we're coming to the end here, and I have to ask this question. I know you guys probably can't answer, but are you privy to or involved with what's next for IDW Transformers comics?
It's a yes or no.
Yeah. Well, sort of. There's so like I'm working on the Bumblebee limited series with Andrew Griffith and Priscilla Tramontano, and like stuff like that will continue. Or that's set in the it's a prequel. I mean, it's by about 20 years a prequel to the upcoming Bumblebee movie. So like I might be aware of something along those lines that perhaps I might be involved in.
Okay.
That's not, you know what I mean? Like when people ask that, like I feel like I've been like cagey online answering stuff because I don't want to be like unclear. Assuming there's like a big reboot book, I don't know. Like I don't know what it is. I don't know what the exact plans. I know a little bit just because of coordinating times and schedules and stuff. I mean for this book, but like I don't know if there's any sort of firm date on when there'll be. I don't know if there's going to be some downtime. There'll be. I think we answered this. Or David Marriott said at WonderCon there'll be Transformers books like every month. You know what I mean? Like, but they won't necessarily be. It won't necessarily be the end of this, like Unicron 6, and then straight into a new Transformers universe unique to the comics. Right. There might be some stuff that's involved in other iterations of Transformers. So like the answer to the question that's probably at the heart of that question is no, I'm not. But there'll be other stuff too. I actually don't know the answer for Alex.
Yes, no.
Oh, well, I hope that changes at some point in the future, because both of you have contributed a lot to Transformers comics, and we'd like to see you come back in some form, on future stories or future comics.
Yeah, I mean, I love Transformers. It's been they've been it's been very nice to work on the Transformers for as long as I have, and it's been an honor, and it's been great to get to meet so many people that these comics have meant so much to. And they mean a lot to me too, obviously. Or hope, obviously, they do, if it's not obvious. But it's been great to meet so many people and see how it's affected people.
Yeah. So thank you to Alex Milne and John Barber for joining us and talking to us about Unicron, and definitely look for or pick up Unicron number 0 at Free Comic Book Day, and look for Unicron number 1 in July, I believe that's coming. So, and it'll be a 6-issue series that will put an end to the Transformers universe. Thank you guys for joining us, and good luck with all your future projects, and we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for all the things you guys are doing.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
So we're going to review Transformers Unicron number 0. This is right after we did our interview with the creators, John Barber and Alex Milne. So hope you enjoyed that interview. And now we're going to talk about the comic. So this issue kicks off the final series and universe-ending IDW story of the current Transformers universe. This issue is titled Our Darkest. Our Darkest what? They don't tell us. You know what it is. Written by John Barber, art by Alex Milne, colors by Sebastian Cheng, letters by Tom B. Long, edited by David Marriott, and publisher Greg Goldstein. This was the Free Comic Book Day issue kicking off Unicron, so there is only one cover by Sarah Peter Durocher, which shows Unicron coming in, and then we have Optimus Prime, Windblade, and Bumblebee all looking up, contemplating as Unicron comes to destroy everything. All right, so let's get into the story. For the planet Elonia, home of Rom, the Space Knight, and the Soulstar Order, It's the end of the world. A ginormous, weird-looking planet has shown up out of nowhere, its gaping maw sucking up the surface of the planet. But never fear, the Autobots are here! Optimus Prime with RC, Pyromagna, Wheeljack, Soundwave, Rom, and Bumblebee observe the carnage from their arc in orbit. Optimus Prime feels a pang of guilt as he reflects that this monster planet was seemingly summoned by a signal sent from Cybertron. Now, yet another world is threatened because of the actions of Cybertronians. They don't have any idea how to stop the anomaly coming to consume Rom's homeworld, but Wheeljack does have a plan to save the populace. He can set up a network of space bridges to evacuate all Alonians off the planet and back to Cybertron. After all, Alonia isn't a place, it's a people. But Rom isn't ready to admit defeat quite yet. The Soulstar Knights are ready to defend their planet themselves. Against Optimus Prime's protest and warning, Rom leads a force of knights to confront the attacking planet directly. It doesn't go well. Nearly all the Soulstar Knights are obliterated by energy blasts from the monster planet's maw. Only Rom and his fellow knight Livia survive. Watching in horror, Bumblebee can only ask, what are we going to do now? To make matters worse, scans of the surface of the anomaly planet find dead Cybertronian bodies, and unfortunately, one body looks very familiar. It's Cliffjumper, whose team vanished along with the Cybertronian colony world, Velocitron. Now they know that world's terrible fate. There's no option left but to proceed with the planet-wide evacuation. Teams of Autobots transport to the surface to set up space bridge anchor points and gather the citizens to get ready for transport. Wheeljack has everything calibrated and ready to go. He flips the switch, and nothing happens. Something is blocking the space bridge signal, preventing off-world transport, but local orbital bounces still work. Prime and RC teleport to the surface of Alonia to try and figure out what's wrong. As luck would have it, they teleport to the location where Rom crashed after his disastrous attack on the monster planet, which also happens to be the location of the Thrail mineral mine and source of the Soulstar Knights' crystalline armor. And there, Optimus Prime discovers the truth. The source of the Space Knight's armor is not a magical metal or a gift from the gods. It's the body of a Cybertronian Titan, one that crashed and was buried on Alonia millennia ago. Surprisingly, the Titan's body is also mixed with one of Shockwave's Regenesis ores, Iteration 12. The Titan is still alive, but in a confused state, which is why it's blocking the space bridge's signal. Prime, RC, and Rom reach the brain module of the Titan, and Prime is able to make contact with its consciousness. But without a city speaker like Windblade, they have no hope of getting the Titan to shut down its space bridge countersignal. With time running out, RC exercises their only option. She draws her energy blades and plunges them into the Titan's brain module, killing it and shutting down its interference signal. The Titan's death scream means life for the people of Alonia. Wheeljack manages to activate the space bridge at the last moment before the planet is consumed. But there is a price. Only 2/3 of the Alonian population are evacuated to safety, and in order to stabilize the signal, Wheeljack had to stay behind. On the Ark, Prime, Rom, the Autobots, and Soundwave watch helplessly as the monster planet consumes Alonia until nothing is left. But when it's over, the Destroyer of Worlds is gone. But Prime knows the threat is far from over. Rom can barely process the loss of his homeworld and a third of its people, and Soundwave declares they must do better next time. Rom asks what we're all thinking. Next time? Optimus Prime contacts Windblade on Cybertron, and she explains. They've been tracking this anomaly since the destruction of a planet called LV-117. LV-117 was another planet seeded with one of Shockwave's Regenesis ores, or 1, that caused the planet to become unstuck in time. Optimus Prime witnessed the planet's destruction years ago, but it was only actually attacked last week. This was after Cybertron had sent a signal into space with the message, "Welcome Death," after the planet's core was attacked by humans in the First Strike series. And now they've detected a second transmission with a single word, something they've never heard before: Unicron. This thing has already consumed Prion, Gorlon Prime, and Velocitron, worlds with Cybertronian colonies or where a Titan had crash-landed, but worlds also seeded with the Regenesis ore. It appears that this thing, Unicron, is targeting all of the Cybertronian colony worlds, consuming them one by one, which means Unicron is coming for Earth as well. As Prime and the Autobots contemplate what they can possibly do next, we see where Unicron has gone. Far away, Eucharis, the Cybertronian Beastbot colony world, is under attack. As Unicron consumes another unlucky world, it declares to a despairing universe, "I hunger." To be continued in Unicron #1. So that is the way to kick off a Unicron series. I really thought this. I mean, first of all, Alex Milne on art, I think it's incredible. It's it feels almost like we're returning to the Rom versus Transformers miniseries. It feels like a spiritual successor to that. We've got the same creative team, mostly with a different colorist, but you know the what he renders here, the scale of all the things that are going on in this book, the scale of Unicron, the scale of the populace of Elonia evacuating, all, you know, I just think it's really well done, and I think it's a really good setup. I mean, if you're talking about setting up for a Unicron series, this is the way to do it. I think this is a really good build up. We have a credible threat here with Unicron already destroying several worlds in one fell swoop. I just really enjoyed it. I thought this was the right way to kick things off, and I hope the rest of the series lives up to this opening. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great.
So Yoshi, what did you think?
For me, we all know I'm the least invested here. For me, the art is the saving grace. It's gorgeous. I felt you know, part of me hurt when the whole what was it, Wheeljack and Bumblebee are trying to get everybody off the planet. That was probably my favorite part of the book, or the most entertaining part for me. Really feels like Optimus Prime is neutered, and he's been this way for a while, I feel like. And in that respects, I welcome the death of these series so that we can reboot and get something a little more familiar to me. I can't help but think, you know, we've seen a couple of more images of Unicron online. Like, is that even a figure that can be tackled? I mean, there are so many points going every which way. I go with no, but I'm here. I'm in for the ride. Let's find out what happens next.
All right, Daryl, bring us up.
I really, really liked this book a lot. It was exciting right from the word go. I mean, the first panel, you know, you have first page, the first panel is not really that exciting, but the first it's a sunrise. I mean, it's nice, but the first page, a world gets destroyed. It's, you know, or is getting destroyed. It's very exciting. It's emotional because you've got the alien child with the pig dog
it's
thing.
Nice homage to the 86 movie.
It's right, exactly. And it's just, Alex's art is detail on top of detail. So that second page, where the majority of it is just the world getting sucked up into Unicron, is just beautiful. You know, he put, you know, individual leaves on trees and stuff like that are being destroyed. You know, people and creatures and, you know, just stuff just getting sucked up. It's just incredible detail. I love it. This is the kind of stuff that Alex excels at, and I love to see him being able to play in it. The part that Yoshi touched on about Bumblebee and Wheeljack having a moment where Wheeljack doesn't quite allow him access, or sorry, doesn't quite tell him that he's about to sacrifice himself, obviously keeping it to himself so he can try and stop him. Bumblebee doesn't try and stop him. Was a beautiful moment in that chaotic scene. And then obviously you get Bumblebee running through the crowd looking for Wheeljack. It was quite touching. And you're going to see stuff like this. I'm wondering, because the end of this universe is coming so quickly, that character deaths whether they happen off screen or not, we just have to assume that they're legit this time around. Whether it's we don't see a body or not, it's assuming, yeah, okay, Wheeljack is dead because the end is here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, I can't imagine we've had this be done before, but this is probably the first time that we're going into a mini series where we know the end.
Well, we assume we know the end.
Right, that's true.
I mean, you have in 86 with Crisis on Infinite Earths, you knew that it was going to be the cause of a reboot. You didn't know exactly how. So, I mean, they could do something like that here where the end of this is basically the Big Bang for whatever comes next.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know if, I mean, they're ending the series, but that doesn't necessarily mean Unicron wins and eats everybody. I mean,
well, as to what Yoshi said, I don't see how he gets beat.
Yeah, but that's a super downer ending. I think they would like to they would like to end on at least the story is supposed to be about, I mean, you would like to end on like triumph despite adversity, not just here's the destruction of all things. Sit back and let it happen.
Unicron's about to destroy everything. Suddenly, Megatron comes back from the Functionist universe with a huge army that actually takes him out.
With a Functionist Unicron that's actually good.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I'll just end by saying that this book hooked me. For something that's being given away for free on Free Comic Book Day, I very rarely invest a lot of time or energy in reading them. I have stacks and stacks and stacks of Free Comic Book Day books that I have never read because I just pick them up because they look fun and I never get around to reading them. This book has me invested in it from the start. Obviously, I'm biased on the Transformers fact, but because this book leads into Unicron #1 and doesn't reprint part of Unicron #1, I am already invested. And I love it when they do that. Free Comic Book Day books often just reprint a bit of an issue or something that's, been happening or something that happened, years ago because it's easy to do. But this is a book that's been produced specifically for it and that is going to be included as part of the story. And that is amazing. I love it. You very rarely see it. And it's important because it's part of a humongous story that's bringing an end to continuity. And I think it's fantastic. I'm very much looking forward to where this story goes. Oh, and when you said you saw Cliffjumper's dead body there on the surface of Unicron, he was also lying next to the dead body of Energon Hotshot.
Yeah, or Armada.
Or either or, they're the same thing basically.
You've also got Override, the leader of Velocitron, there too.
Oh yeah,
the little orange and red head there.
I couldn't tell who that was really, so I didn't really know. But I love how you see those little Easter eggs kind of thrown in there.
Mm-hmm.
And to be perfectly honest, Alex's art throws a lot of Easter eggs in this kind of stuff. So I'm sure we've missed a bunch.
The Armada era of series.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I'm just looking at like since you mentioned that, I'm looking at the panel right after that one where you see the Soulstar Knights attacking. There's like a little orange cube that's one of the Soulstar Knights flying with the other knights. So it makes me think of like the Green Lantern Corps, where you've got just random aliens from all different species as part of the Soulstar Knights.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of cool. I hadn't noticed that. I just thought it was like a weapon or something.
Yeah. All right, Jeremy, what did you think?
This was fantastic. We had heard, kind of going on what Daryl was just saying about like with the received part of Velocitron, we had heard in interviews prior to this how when Unicron consumes a planet, you will see parts of that planet like on his surface. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. And just, it's not just the landscape. You actually see like the dead bodies, and in one scene you see like a bot that's impaled on a spike horrific, but we're not getting the 86 movie Unicron. And I also like how long it took. I mean, the classic thing of Unicron is it takes minutes for him to consume the planet. Here, it looks like they had a little bit of time to get in there and do some stuff before they ultimately had to evacuate. On the bigger picture stuff, I love the continuity, like tying in the Regenesis ores from Shockwave and like all the various planets that we've seen in like the RID series and the LV-117, I believe that was it. And then even the Titans, how, revealing that this planet that the Soul Star Order was formed on is actually an unknown colony world for Cybertron. I like how John is tying this all together in a nice package before he destroys it all.
So is it the Titans, or is it the ores that is bringing Unicron to these planets?
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. But it's kind of convenient that the ores were seeded on worlds that had Titans.
Yeah, and
so I mean, it's all connected.
13 ores and 13 Titan colonies, right? Is that a coincidence?
13 primes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, each prime had a Titan.
It had a colony.
Yeah. And this
it's all connected.
And this firmly, kind of sets their sights on Earth. And I like how all of this is coming to a head. And if you hadn't read any of the previous stuff, you could come in here and you get an enjoyable comic. But if you have been reading for a large portion of the IDW Transformers continuity, you're getting a lot more out of this. And I love that. I mean, the art is fantastic, as you guys have said. I love how you get like the perspective of scale on all this. Like on one page, this is like 15 in our review copy, but you have at the top, you see Unicron devouring the planet. And at the bottom, you see like Bumblebee running through the crowd. It's just like two different things where you're seeing the sense of scale. And, I love how Alex is able to do that. So I am so on board with reading this. And if, you're going to end it and you've been holding off on Unicron, this is the way to bring him in.
All right. Well, that is Transformers Unicron number 0. And this is kicking off the beginning of the end. So I thought it's so now that we've had the interview, we've done the comic review. So let's end with a little bit of speculation as to what comes next for Transformers. All right. So we got to talk to John and Alex. We did our review of Unicron number 0. And now let's have a short discussion about what comes next for IDW Transformers comics. So we do know that IDW is putting out some tie-in comics for the Bumblebee movie. There's a prequel comic coming. There's also a Bumblebee-focused one-shot that they're producing that doesn't seem to be tied directly to any continuity at the moment. But other than that, things are kind of up in the air. So what do we think is going to happen with or let's say what would we like to happen with the next IDW comic? So Jeremy, I'm going to start with you. What would you like to see for future IDW comics?
I think that the Hasbro shared universe thing kind of was the beginning of the end for the current continuity. But I don't think it was, all in all, a bad idea to have. I just think the way that they had to kind of shoehorn things in to make it fit was bad. What I would like to see is just from the ground up, even if you're starting Transformers pre-war Cybertron, do it with a plan, like where you have a G.I. Joe book going on, a ROM book going on, whatever. Just have a plan for the shared universe from the beginning. Start the Transformers wherever you're going to start them. And, if you tell a story in modern time, it's set in this universe. Rather than just, on the back end deciding you're going to get all these properties and shove them together. And whatever they do, I would just like them to have a clear definition of what their universe entails, and like a rough timeline of at this point in history, these types of events happened. So when they're telling the stories, they know, okay, we're fitting in here. We have these pieces to play with. And I mean, it's kind of like how Star Wars is, their story group, they have a rough outline of a lot of the stories that haven't been told. Just, they're like, at this point in history, this happened. And I would just like to see that.
All right.
I don't really care, retell G1 in modern day, tell the war. I'm interested in good stories regardless of when they are. I just want to have knowledge that there's a plan.
Mm-hmm. Daryl, what would you like to see?
Well, my goal has always been to have the characters basically fight more. The books recently have been a lot more story driven, and the war is over and it's been at peace, and there's just been kind of political conflicts that have been driving the stories. And for me, it's been a lot more boring than it has been fun to read. So I'd like them to get back to fighting a war and to be blowing stuff up and killing each other again. That kind of stuff really makes the book fun for me. The other part of it is I'm an art first, story second guy. The Transformers books need to look really good for me to enjoy them. The story, might be well written. It might be better than best, but if I can't stand flipping the page to see what comes next because the art just does not work for me, I won't want to buy that book. And Transformers and through IDW have had some fantastic artists, some of the best stable of artists in a long time, and I really hope that that continues. So all I really want is more fighting.
Fair enough. And Yoshi, what would you like to see?
Well, I want to agree with Jeremy. A proper reboot, if it's going to be a Hasbro universe thing, executed properly, thought out properly, would be very, very fun. I being me, I want to see a G1 story. Guaranteed you get my money without any hesitation. The book is called Transformers, so please don't be afraid to show Transformers transforming. That's something that's been sorely lacking. And I agree with Daryl, there needs to be fighting. To me, politics is boring. It's not entertaining. That's not what I'm reading Transformers books for. So G1 book, a proper, clean, thought out Hasbro reboot, and it's called Transformers. Let them transform.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with what all you guys have put on the table. I mean, for me, I think I would really like to see a back to basics approach where we really focus on a core group of characters and conflict there, but still have the sense that it's part of a larger world or a larger conflict. I would like to. I think I think we have gotten away from Transformers as a war story, and maybe if we went back to that, but had like a smaller story, but have the backdrop of a large galactic war. That the characters have been living with for eons. I think that's a lot of open field and open potential.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've gotten a good kind of epic sense of the war.
Yeah, so I would welcome that. I would also. I mean, I guess for it's difficult to kind of sell Transformers if you don't put the major iconic characters in there, but I would I would like to focus on building up some new characters in the stories, and maybe compromise, have maybe a couple of prominent characters, but then introduce some new ones. I think Transformers survives by continually getting new characters and new situations and new ideas. So give me some new characters or characters that have not had a prominent role come to the forefront. I think that would be cool.
now that we're all talking, I'm remembering some of my complaints throughout the years. You know, I'm a big fan of the Monster of the Week storyline. Like, I don't want to have to buy 6 issues to read a story. I mean, put a story in an issue. You know, you're gonna keep personally me interested. I think that also alleviates trying to come up with a jumping on point for someone at issue 50. One and done each issue. And
it seems like that's more the exception than the rule, that, you know, in the general in comics.
Right. And then I know for me personally, if you just want me to blindly open my wallet, it's a G1 story, but there are so many other incarnations of Transformers throughout the year that the kids that grew up on them are now old enough for disposable income. It shouldn't, that theory shouldn't be limited to G1. You can do Beast Wars, you can do animated, you can do any number of incarnations of Transformers that I think now are getting ready to be prime for people to buy.
All right. Well, you know, one of the things that we really thrive on and appreciate on the Transmissions podcast is getting feedback from listeners. So I think this is a good time to ask, if you are a new listener, maybe send us some feedback about what your thoughts are on the future of IDW Transformers comics. If you are reading them and interested in them and interested to see what comes next, or maybe this is your first IDW Transformers comic and you're curious as to whether you should get into the comics, and maybe you're thinking about jumping on later in the year when they if and when they do get rebooted. So leave us some feedback. There's lots of ways to get in touch with us. We're on all the social medias, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can go to our website, transmissionspodcast.com/feedback. You can send us emails, or you can leave us voicemails, even if you want to, talk to us directly. And we usually play the voicemails on the show when we respond to them. So that's always nice. So there's lots of ways to get in touch with us. If you do like what you hear, if you like Transmissions, we do have a Patreon to support the show. So, that's for anyone who's interested. You can go to transmissionspodcast.com/support, and you can donate to the show either through Patreon or PayPal and become a Donatreon. There's lots of perks, extra podcasts that we produce that are exclusive to those members. So there's lots of good stuff, if you're interested. So thanks everyone for listening to the show. We hope you enjoyed it. And, we hope you'll come back and hear us again sometime. Bye-bye.
Happy Free Comic Book Day.
Bye.
Later.
Thanks for listening to Transmissions. Remember, you can help support the show by donating to us directly via Patreon or PayPal. Once you become a donor, you will receive access to donor-only goodies, like donor-only contests, listening to us record Transmissions live, and getting Transmissions swag at 20% off. You can find links for this at transmissionspodcast.com/support. Subscribing to us on Stitcher, iTunes, and Google Play is also a great way to support us here at Transmissions. Every subscription we get helps us get better noticed on those services. Leaving us a comment and 5-star review doesn't hurt either. Be sure to come chat with us on Discord. You will find a link for Discord at transmissionspodcast.com/Discord. And of course, you can always send us an email at feedback@transmissionspodcast.com. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you again next week.